3 years earlier. The VA hospital in Biloxi, Mississippi seemed like a nice place to work, especially for a small-town girl looking to upgrade her trade school degree. I knew I should be grateful for any position, but damn if the hours didn't suck. With the 10-hour shifts, I felt like I practically lived there. But Nate Grayson, he made it worth it. I happily ran up the 3 flights of stairs to the room that Nate had occupied for nearly a year. My long legs took multiple steps at a time. The idea of spending time with Nate always filled me with joy. I made sure to check my hair and makeup before pushing the call button. I needed to look like a professional, as opposed to someone who was getting paid to hang out with her best friend. I was buzzed in and quickly ushered to Nate's room by a very anxious lead nurse. Is something wrong? I knew the 42-year-old former master sergeant had been forced to stop chemo a few weeks back when he coded for the 3rd time during treatment. No, nothing's wrong. Just Nate being his usual self, the woman said with a sigh. Whatever. Hey, Nate! He turned to me, his dark blonde facial hair obscuring the deep scarring on his face. He still had a port in his chest for antibiotics and pain medication, but these days it was rarely used for anything more than saline. Hey, Raven! Nate smiled at me as best he could with his disfigured face and light blue eyes. He had lost part of his jaw in an incident in Candabar. His face had been rebuilt with bone implants and muscle grafts. For whatever reason, thinking about the incident caused migraine headaches. This was either due to the bone shrapnel lodged in his brain or the late-stage blood cancer. You look good, man, I said through a forced smile. You look strong. You always look good, he said in a tired, scratchy voice. He'd been fighting for as long as I'd known him. Nate, he had the mind of a scholar, the heart of a poet, and the soul of a warrior. Did you sneak out of bed again? I asked at the sight of his wrist restraints. With how sick he was, I could see no other reason to have him handcuffed to the railing. Even when he suffered from violent sleep seizures, raising the bed was enough to keep him secured. Sometimes a lost soul needs to find its way home, he muttered in the same weak, pain-stricken tone. Or maybe I was just looking for a place to smoke a blunt. Nate smiled with a broken grin. I knew Nate was in so much pain. The cancer had taken so much, and the chemo just nuked the rest. His immune system was so weak, he was constantly sick with infection and fever. His kidneys were already shutting down, and it was likely his death would come via heart or liver failure. We need to talk to your wife about hospice and palliative care. My mother, he replied with a groan. The divorce was finalized earlier this week. Gia no longer has medical power of attorney. That's good, I guess. I'd met Gia when she was 3 months pregnant with the child of Nate's previous doctor. She still visited him, likely out of guilt. Or even more likely because her new fuckboy worked in the same hospital. Nate nodded. The Lord works in mysterious ways. He had been sterile their entire relationship, together for 10 years, married for 7. She always wanted a little girl. His voice faded into a hoarse whisper. We always wanted a little girl. I knew he wouldn't live to see the birth of Gia's baby. Or maybe he would. Nate was just that badass. Or maybe that was a horrible thing for me to wish on my best friend. Placing my hand upon his, I could feel the bones through his skin. You have me. You're cooler than my real dad ever was. That was kind of a lie, but it got a smile. Can you stay for a while? Of course. I stood up and worked on flushing his IV to start a saline drip. I wish I could give you something for the pain. Nate had been denied any further pain treatment, as even the highest levels of morphine failed to ease his body. Nothing short of a medicated coma would have been even therapeutic. You do, Nate said, motioning to a secret compartment between the mattress and the bed. You give me peace. I reached over and pulled a vape pen from a space under his mattress. The find caused me to chuckle. I knew he had visitors from a local charity that supplied terminally ill veterans with CBD products. Sometimes he asked for gummies or other edibles, but mostly oils and lotions to help with the muscle pain. Did you bring enough to share with the class? Nate smiled. I always do. I walked my fingers down his arm to his wrist. Do you want to talk about the wrist restraints? I asked as I held the vape pen to his lips. I discreetly angled my wrist, hoping to not set off any alarms. There were cameras in the room in addition to the heart monitors on his chest and oxygen reader on his hand. But he was my patient and I knew what he needed. I allowed him one long drag to calm his nerves before returning it to its hiding place.